first thing you need to know is that this is not unprecedented. When you hear analysts say unprecedented, when you hear observers say unprecedented, it is not. It is decidedly not. The NFL in 1963 suspended 2 would-be Hall of Famers in their prime for betting on football. Star of the Packers and Heisman Trophy winner Paul Hornung, and star of the Lions Alex Karras. Those 2 guys, Karras would later on go on to be the dad in Webster. Those 2 guys were suspended for a full season for the same exact thing, betting on football. Okay? That was the start of the NFL cracking down on gambling in their league. In the 80s, a top 5 pick, Art Schlichter, was also suspended for an entire season and ultimately had a gambling problem, could never shake it, and was banned from the league. Also, this kind of story unfolded around it. So this is not unprecedented. In modern times, over the last 30 some odd years, well, for the full season, yes, but you just heard the mention of Josh Shaw there. So the NFL has now evolved. The reason that Pete Rozelle was so freaked out about Hornung and Karras, remember, is that that's still about 40 years after the 1919 Black Sox. So at the time, the money that players could make paled in comparison to what bookies, sharks, the mob could pay off players with. That was always the fear. The Black Sox got bought off because they didn't make enough money not to get bought off. You could buy off those guys in 1919. All of the point shaving scandals of college basketball in the 50s, again, those are college kids. You can pay them off. In the NFL, even Paul Hornung and Alex Karras, they worried, hey, these guys aren't making enough money to where there's no way they would take a payout. So that was the worry. The back channels of gambling and sports gambling was always very icky to all these sports leagues because of that, and because sports betting wasn't legalized for the rest of the country. So if you were going to bet, you had to go through a bookie. There were rarely offshore accounts that you would use. Before the internet, you had to use a bookie or go to Las Vegas, and they worried about shady characters, buying off players, point shaving, moving lines, etc. Well, today, it's a completely different reality. Calvin Ridley doesn't have to get hooked up with a bookie. Calvin Ridley doesn't have to go down to the corner on a guy that runs numbers. Calvin Ridley doesn't have to go through a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy to put in a bet. He opens up his phone and logs on to his app the same way he would Twitter or Instagram or the CBS Sports app or the ESPN app or your banking app or your dating app. And that changes everything. There are no dark arts anymore around gambling. In fact, if you pop up FanDuel right now, it's a more fun app than playing Candy Crush. It's like beep, beep, boop. Oh, cool, 16 parlay. Bop, bop, bop. Same game parlay. Boop, bop, beep, bop, bop. $250 here. Oh, here's a boost and a bonus. Oh, here's this, that, and the other thing. They gamified betting. Daily fantasy. Oh, this can parlay with that. You can boost this. You can stack that. Oh, we get this boost and that special and this bet is guaranteed. And so therein lies right now the huge difference is that Calvin Ridley, away from the game, can sit on his couch, watch a game, pop in a few bets, and it is actually totally different than the way that it used to be. But it means that all of these players are now so much more at risk of something like this because it's so easy and it's legalized so many places. I mean, hell, I'm hosting on the BetQL network, which is the sister company of CBS Sports Radio under the Odyssey umbrella on Sunday mornings. There's an entire 24-hour network under this roof here talking about sports gambling every single day. So these players are now at a risk that they've never been at before. Sports gambling is everywhere, and they can do it easily, and it doesn't feel underhanded or dark or weird or eerie or illegal or anything like that. Because of that, the NFL has to, like these other leagues, be far more vigilant than ever before. Far more vigilant. Because what are the odds Calvin Ridley is the only guy out of the hundreds of players that play in the NFL that sat on a couch and threw in a bet? Now, maybe these guys were smart enough to bet on the NBA or bet on hockey or bet on soccer or bet on something else or bet on UFC. But you're telling me that nobody in the NFL has sat on their couch, opened up their FanDuel app or their DraftKings app or their BetMGM app or their BetRivers app and bet on a boxing match? You're telling me they've never bet in a UFC bout? You're telling me they've never bet in the NBA? They probably have. But this comes back to their league. So the NFL has to be far more vigilant than ever. And this was a message to everybody. We're taking you out for a year. That's a year of no salary. That's a full year. You think about that, everybody. This is clearly a shot across the bow at the players that they know need these messages. Now, Calvin Ridley is not without blame here. In every locker room, there's a huge sign. Every locker room I've ever been in professional sports and college sports. No gambling. Stop! Exclamation point. If you're thinking about gambling, don't do it. Yada, yada, yada. I would imagine the Atlanta Falcons, like every NFL team, better right now have a rookie symposium or have a veteran symposium or the first day training camp, sit everybody down and say, do not gamble. It's easy now. It's legal now. Don't do it. The fear isn't anymore that these guys can be really bought off because, I mean, look, if you're going to buy off Calvin Ridley, it's got to start at $11 million. Okay? I mean, some people have that, but it's really hard to convince a guy that could be worth up to, let's say, $80 million over the course of his career to throw out your career to point shave or throw games, etc. That's not the risk that these guys are getting bought off. The risk is that these guys are engaging in something that everybody's engaging in and it doesn't feel wrong. So they've got to sit all these guys down and hammer this home, and maybe this is the way to get their attention. So Calvin Ridley made a huge boneheaded mistake. If he's telling the truth that he's only bet $1,500 in his career, then he just bet $1,500 to lose $11 million. That's what we call a bad beat. On top of this, the NFL is right now walking, along with all of these other leagues, this very hypocritical line. They want all of their cake, and they want to eat it too. They want to promote gambling. They want to push lines. The NFL network, owned by the league owners, has gambling sponsorship tie-ins. The Red Zone channel, owned by the NFL, is brought to you by a gambling company. They want to collect all of the cash from sports gambling. All of it. They're not saying no to any of it. But, man, the moment that one of their players steps across the bounds, now it's all bets are off and this guy's thrown to the wolves. It's the unfortunate reality. If they want to collect all the cash from sports betting and we want to do the sports betting, then you have to mandate the players do not partake. And how do you do that? You scare them. And this is what this is. This is exactly what this is. What's funny is anybody that might have thought, well, does the NFL have to back off now its relationship with sports gambling? Oh, You thought they would say no thanks to the tens of millions, hundreds of millions, perhaps billions of dollars coming in from sports gambling? Oh, I don't think they're pushing away from the table on that one.